I just have to introduce our speaker who is representing the AWS team, and she's going to talk about building agentic AI apps using open source standards agents SDK. Can we please give her a round of applause so that she can start our talk?
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I was about to say I'll have to speak without the mic. Thanks for sorting it out. And thanks for being patient to wait for us to start. So I'm Velu Saboya. I'm from AWS, and I'm a senior developer advocate at AWS. I'm based here in Joburg, but I work with the developer community throughout sub-Saharan Africa. I'm very excited to be part of PyCon Africa and to be here and spend time with all of you. Before I start, I just want to get a sense of the room. How many of us are building AI agents already? Okay, and there are various ways to build them. So we'll look at options today of what you can actually try out if you want to build an AI agent. What I will be walking us through is how I built an AI agent. I started last year using a fully managed platform. When all these open source frameworks came up and when we actually released our own one at AWS, I wanted to test it out and see what that could actually look like. So I then tried that. I took the same app that I built using the fully managed platform that we have on AWS, and I built that exact same app using the open source framework that we launched at AWS this year, the Strands Agent SDK. In this talk, we also will look at other fully managed options that exist and other open source frameworks that exist, but of course the talk is around Strands Agents framework. And just before I start to talk about the different options, just to quickly touch on AI agents, when the entire generative AI thing happened a few years ago, everyone was going out and we were vibe coding, just putting in your prompts and seeing what you can get. But the journey or the migration is start to move towards where folks are really building AI agents. Because with an agent, you just tell it what to do, and autonomously, without you being there, it will go out and perform these different tasks for you. So people are building agents to do customer service, and some you can do them to autonomously go and do your shopping for you without you being there. And that's where the industry start to move towards. I did say earlier on that there are different ways in which you can go out and build an AI agent. The first option that we will look at is you building that locally. So there are folks who will say, I don't want to bother with worrying about security. I don't want to have to go into someone's cloud or go into a platform and use their platform to build an AI agent. And it could be that you just want to try out and see what it looks like or how it would go. So you could then start to do that locally just as an experiment. So what you would do when you are building it locally, you could install, say, an open source framework like Olama. It's very well known for being used to run your LLMs locally. So you could install that in your local machine, and then you could do all the implementation of everything else that you will need so that your agent can run. So you could start implementing your components like your tools that you need to add, the memory and the state that you need, and then you could start to iterate. It's a great way to start, and it's a great way to experiment. But once you want to start scaling, then it starts being quite limiting for you, because you now need to worry about things such as your CPU or GPU resources. If you're working with your local machine, you might not have enough. And what happens when you have issues that you encounter, such as hallucinations? Now you have to put in the time yourself to make sure that you mitigate against those. And that can take you time. Of course, I talked about the pros that you would get with that, in that you're now working in offline environment, and folks do appreciate that sometimes. But it's really great for while you still are experimenting. Once you want to start scaling, it's not the great place for you to start. So that's you building locally. The other option that you might consider is now a fully managed platform. Many providers out there have them. We have them on AWS. We've got on a platform that we use to house LLMs, Amazon Bedrock. We've got a feature, Amazon Bedrock Agents, which you could go there and you're just clicking around and you can start creating your first AI agent, and then you can take it from there. You can access that in the console, or you can access that using an SDK. It is another great option, but of course, because it's a guided platform, there might be limitations. What if you want to go and do a lot of customization? Then it starts becoming very limiting for you. And the third option is the do-it-yourself, where you now use open source frameworks. Today, I'll be talking about Strands that we released on AWS, which is an open source framework. But there are other open source frameworks that already exist. You might have been on a talk earlier today. Earlier on when I came here, I had only 4 logos here. And then I met the team from Agno. I don't know, maybe you might have been on one of their talks. Oh, they're here. And they told me that they also have an open source framework for building AI agents. So if you want to have a chat with them, you could chat with them as well later on. But on AWS, we also have one, so you can chat with me as well about the one that we have, which is the Strands open source framework that we have. So I talked that last year, I went and used the fully managed option that we have on AWS, Amazon Bedrock. I went on to a feature known as knowledge bases, which is more of a RAG feature that we have, and I built my AI agent. What I want to showcase today is what the code looks like when you are using something that's fully managed, and what your code looks like when you are using the Strands framework. So this is what I did. Just in Python, it still was not a lot that I actually had to write to get this going, but I'm just contrasting what the two would look like. So I went just like you normally would. I started doing all my imports, and I got my client on so that I can access the Bedrock Agent Runtime API. And then I started to declare the model on Amazon Bedrock that I wanted to use, and the ARN of the model, where the region that is hosted on, and the ID of the model. So that was the first part of my code when I was building using RAG, the fully managed option on AWS. So I did that, and then the next thing that I did was to then have all the setup that I did here so that I can start calling the API, the retrieve and generate API on AWS on the Amazon Bedrock to start building my agent. So that is all the code that I had. So if we step through that, that was just in my function and just all the parameters that I was setting up so that I can call the API to start building. It still does not look like quite a hectic and a lot of things to do. And then when I went to test it, that is what it was doing. What I was building was a city explorer, like TripAdvisor, but a localized one. Let's say you're going to Cape Town and you want to know what attractions exist there. So this is what that was for. So this one was for what? Paris? Yeah, so was I going to go to Paris? Yeah, this was like for France. Like, what actually exists in Paris? What can I go and look at? Very simple app that I was building. So that was that, and that's the code that it actually took me to get all of that going. So then I find out about Strands. And what is Strands? Strands is the open source SDK that we have on AWS that we released. This SDK takes a model-driven approach to you building and running your AI agents in just a few lines of code. And later on, we will take a look and see what these few lines of code actually look like. So the team that is behind the Amazon Q Developer service on AWS, who in this room is using Amazon Q Developer as an AI coding assistant? Nobody? This entire day I've been on that booth to talk about Amazon Q Developer. and I keep saying to everyone that the entire reason for that booth is because every time I say, who is using Q Developer, anywhere I go, nobody in the room. Anyway, we've got a team that has built Amazon Q Developer, and there's another team for Glue and other teams on AWS. So they had been using Strands for a while to get going on their side. And they saw how using Strands, which they built themselves, was helping them build all these agents that are under the hood for all these services that they built. And after working with it for a while, they thought, this could be quite useful for our customers out there. And that was the reason behind them launching it and releasing it publicly for the rest of us to actually work with. So that's a bit of a background behind it. Just to catch up on agents or AI agents, what actually makes them up. And once we start to look at the code, we will be looking at the 3 components of what makes an agent. And then I think once we start to look at the code, it will start to make sense. So with an agent, or when you're building an AI agent, what you have, you've got a prompt. The prompt is what also helps you be autonomous. I talked earlier on that all of this is now happening autonomously. It's not you going in and capturing a prompt. So you capture this when you are building your agents. We've got a prompt, and then we've got the model. The model would be the model that you invoke to do all these responses and all this reasoning and all this tool selection that you're wanting your agent to do. And then we would have tools. So tools could be additional, and sometimes they tend to be optional because you might not want to use them. You will see when we start to do the installation what we're actually looking at. So you've got those 3 components for an agent. You've got your prompt, you've got your model, and you've got your tools. So let's remember these, because once we start to look at the code, we'll start to actually all of it coming together. So your model is what will get your responses. You've got your reasoning being done by a model, and the tool selection. You've got the tools, which I said might be optional, and then you've got your prompt, which you always have. So that's the loop of agents, all things agentic. So now I already had this app, and I built this on this fully managed platform, and I thought, now let me try it out using Strands. What's great with Strands is that you can first test it out on your local machine. I said earlier on, you don't want to manually have to install everything, but you can start with Strands on your local machine. And once you've done the iteration and the testing, you could decide that you want to move it to another platform. You want to move it to a cloud. And what's also great is that it's open source, so it works with just about any other model. So you're not really stuck with just AWS's models. You can use OpenAI's models and all these other ones. So that would be the installation of the Strands Agents SDK and the tools if you need to use them as well on your local machine. That's how you would get started. So that's it, just a quick pip install of both the Strands Agents and the Strands Agents tools. I said earlier on that the tools sometimes tend to be optional, so you might just opt to not install them until you need them. But I installed both this time. That's what I did to get started. And then the usual imports that I did in the libraries for the agent, I imported those, and then I then defined the, that's just the config. I want to look at the model that I'm going to define in the next slide. Then I said, this is the model that I will be using for the reasoning. I talked earlier on that you need a model as well. It's one of the 3 components. I defined the model that I need for the reasoning and the tool selection in case I need to do that as well. So I started to define that. And then the next slide, you will see what the code looks like. I said that with the Strands SDK, few lines of code for you to get going. Think back to all those lines that I had earlier on where I was defining all of those parameters before I could get going. And look at what we have now. Just the agents instance that I just defined, assigning that to my variable, and I defined the model, and then that was a prompt. And you'll see here the one thing that's missing is the tools, because I did not need the tools here, so I did not assign tools here. That is all I did. So this is building the exact same app that we looked at earlier on, a CityFacts or a TripAdvisor, or just help me figure out this city, kind of an agent. That's all we are building. That was it. And then I tested it. This is just my iteration. So I'll skip past this, but this is me testing it. Exact same logic as what we looked at before with the knowledge bases, just a few lines of code on Strands. So what's great about using this open source framework, Strands Agents SDK, is when you look at when you're working with Strands versus a fully managed, there are a lot of limitations that you might get with a fully managed platform that you don't get when you are using this Strands SDK. And also the fact that you have flexibility of getting going on a local machine if you want to start there, and then later on move on to maybe a cloud platform where you want to then scale or maybe publish and go to production. Someone asked me earlier on, because I did say earlier on that there are other frameworks that exist, and someone mentioned LangChain and said, we already have and we use this, how is it different to that? And what we're saying right now with Strands is that it's not as opinionated as that. So it gives you a lot of room to make a lot of decisions yourself and determine where you want to take things. That's the one difference that stands out right now. And as we saw, very few lines of code, focusing just on what you want the model to do or what you want to get back from the model and what you want your agent to do. Few lines of code and you get going. The project already has contributors that are other companies, and of course we've got the community that also contributes, but these are just the big customers or companies that are contributing to the project. Accenture is contributing. Anthropic, we have a lot of partnerships with Anthropic as AWS. The Claude model is what's actually under the hood on the Amazon Q developer, so we partner with Anthropic quite a lot. They contribute to the project, Meta does, and a couple others also contribute to the project. And this entire journey that I just talked about today, I actually wrote and published it as a post. So if you scan this QR code, you will see the entire journey. If you scan this QR code, you're going to get to the post that talks about Strands. But in there, I've got links to the old blog posts that are published for the knowledge bases. So you can learn about the entire journey, and you can find all the other resources that exist that you can consult to learn more. And if you do go to this blog post and you want to comment and ask me questions or engage in any way, you're going to need to have a Builder ID on the Builder Center, which is a platform for developers on AWS that we have, where we publish content, where we have resources for developers to connect with each other and network and find events. To do all of that, you're going to need to have a Builder ID. So you can scan this and just, this is how you would then claim your Builder ID so that you can also publish your own content on Builder Center. And I thank you for your time. If you scan this QR code, you're going to get to my LinkedIn profile. And we can connect, and you can ask me questions, and we can have a further chat. I think we still have time for questions. So if you have anything that you want to ask, you can ask me. Thank you so much.
Can we please just give her another hands of applause? That was very, very amazing. Thank you. Okay, 10 minutes for more questions. Please, if you have a question that you may ask at the booth, it's better you ask it here, because someone in the room may be really super shy, maybe to just go there, or they don't know, then everybody can get insights.
Thank you very much for the talk. I just have a question. What is the cost addition to use Strands on top of the underlying services?
Pricing tends to be very nuanced, so I tend to not answer them because it can be very tricky. But if you go into that blog post that I have, you will see a link to a lot of resources, and you will be able to arrive at a Strands page, and then you can read about their pricing around that as well. Okay, thanks.
Anyone else is curious?
Hey, great presentation. I would like to ask a question around tools. You mentioned tools, but I did not see them.
So the tools that I said were optional. This is when you would start, if you want to bring MCP as well. So tools like that, you can then start connecting to using the other third component that I mentioned there. So it would be one of the tools that you could use. Okay, and there are simpler ones like calculators, time tools. Those are the simpler tools that you could connect to. Okay.
We still have more time, please. You can ask. Anybody else? Thank you.
Hi. So my question is not that deep, but are you giving out credits so that we can play around with strands?
Credits, yeah, I think I do have credits. If you come to the booth, yeah.
Now everybody's gonna come to the booth.
Hi, thank you for the talk. Once you've generated the agent using Strands, can you then go and inspect its code and make changes yourself, or would you have to edit the prompt to get it to do something else?
It would be the prompt, because that's the idea, is that you shouldn't have to worry so much about what's underlying. So just editing the prompt to change it to what you want it to do. Yeah.
Yes, please bring them on, the questions. Still have time? So you want to say everybody cannot be able to build an agentic AI? No questions? Okay, please, let's give her another round of applause.
Thank you, everyone.